believe that we live in one of the best times in all of human history in which to design and lead corporate worship, especially in fresh, creative, innovative, and vibrant ways. I mean, just think of in congregational song alone, for example. Just think of the incredible resources that are at our fingertips. We have access to music from many different cultures across the world and throughout time. And the same is true in other areas of worship as well, from what we can do visually, what we can do orally, what we can do to tell God's story and God's dreams for the world, utilizing all of our senses. You know, in some sense, friends, we are the superintendents of God's story. We are storytellers. And part of our work as worship leaders in the church, as worship designers in the church, as curators of worship, is to tell God's story in fresh and vibrant ways and to point forward to God's preferred future for the world. In some sense, perhaps even rehearsing what it looks like when God's kingdom comes on earth as it is in heaven in worship. How can we tell God's story in clear and vibrant and fresh ways using the many mediums available to us? I mean, technology is, of course, anything that we can use to move things forward. I mean, is there a finer piece of technology than a beautiful handmade organ? What a marvelous thing to behold. And so, in some sense, if we're able to keep an open mind about the use of technology in worship, we live in a great time in which the sky is really the limit for the things that we can do to be storytellers and to push things forward, if you will, in worship. Because we have all of these things available to us, I think we have to be very, very mindful of an important maxim in creative worship design, which is this. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Maybe another way of saying that is that less is usually more, until more is more. We need to be very mindful of not using technology in worship, the latest and greatest thing, whether it's incorporating social media or using triple wide projection or video or anything like that. Music even, for example, all of these things, unless they enhance what we are doing in worship, unless they enhance the people's ability to participate and engage in worship, then we shouldn't use them. One of the things that we've learned, you'll see certainly in the, our worship venue that we do most of the contemporary services in, we have this huge screen, and over the course of it, I should say it didn't take us very long to figure out that when you're working with almost 80 feet of screen available to you, that less is more, and it's very easy to just go over the top. And when we do that, our technology can become a distraction from what God is doing in worship. One of the things I tell our media operators and designers all the time, and this is especially true in visual and oral components, is this. Our job is to not interfere with what the Holy Spirit is doing. We do not want to be an impediment to the work of the Spirit. I say this to our sound people all the time. Whenever a microphone doesn't turn on until halfway through a sentence, or we get feedback in particular frequencies, then people get lost in that and caught up in that rather, and they lose what the Holy Spirit is doing. So I think this is true in our visual presentations as well, is that we need to be aware of not being an impediment to the Spirit, and also allowing ourselves to be open to what the Spirit is doing in worship and to be flexible. My friend Marcia McPhee has this great saying. Her prayer before worship is that is this: Dear God, please let something happen today that isn't in the bulletin. So being mindful of being open to what the Spirit is up to is very, very important as well. Along the course of what we're going to talk about, I'll share some brief pieces of how we've incorporated and made changes in technology throughout the course of the history of Grace Avenue. So we're going to look at next sound reinforcements and the system components that you'll find in a sound system.